We are back with continuing coverage of today's breaking news. A Phoenix police officer in the hospital after being shot. But police now have a person in custody that they are questioning in connection to that shooting.
We're joined by Andy Anderson. He's the former assistant chief of police in Phoenix. Andy, thanks for coming down. This could have been a terrible day. Thank God she's going to be okay, this officer that was shot. I want to ask you, we often in the news talk about police have set up a perimeter. So this is 7th Avenue and Broadway. When you have a situation like this where there is a suspect on the loose, how fast can those perimeters be set up?
Well, it depends on how many officers are in the area. And that's the biggest challenge right now, is because obviously most agencies right now are understaffed. And so they're running all over the place. So that's the biggest issue, is getting enough personnel there to get that area shut down so that they can conduct that search. And it also depends on the area it's in, whether it's a residential area or a business area, or what they have to cover. So they're not all the same. They're all very different, and it's always an incredible challenge to get those things shut down. But I think this is a good example here of what officers deal with when they arrive at these scenes, is they really don't know what they're dealing with.
Sure, we saw the officer bitten by the dog.
Right.
Yes,
In one of the homes.
You know, they get most of the calls come through 911. Dispatchers do a great job of the 911 operators do a great job of interviewing those individuals, but they get limited information. So when the officers show up, many times it's not what they thought it was going to be. And here's a clear case of it not being what they expected.
Right. In this case, the suspect is on the run in a residential neighborhood. You're doing a sweep. I mean, how many officers does this take? Are they literally going door to door looking for this suspect?
Well, they're communicating with each other, obviously, and they're talking to citizens about the description, you know, if anybody saw anything, and they try to go based on the information they're getting. Again, they're all a little bit different on that and whether or not they get information or not. But these are incredibly challenging. And think about it, if this individual is willing to shoot a police officer, nobody out there was safe. And so those officers desperately were trying to find this individual before somebody else got hurt.
And as it turned out, he didn't go far from where the shooting took place. And I couldn't help but think, Andy, today about the parents. Their kids are in school. They see a special report on 12 or another station that there's a shooter on the loose, an officer's been shot, and their kids at school. So once something like this happens, walk us through the process where you put schools on lockdown.
Well, and again, that's a whole nother process in getting those schools shut down, and a lot of those school resource officers are no longer there, which I believe is a really bad idea. I'd love to see those officers back on those schools. But there's not enough officers there to even handle some of those, because you've got all those officers out on the scene trying to find this individual and get those locations locked down and contained. And at the same time, you're trying to protect the kids in the schools in those areas. So it's an incredibly challenging aspect of this whole thing.
It is, and when you're dealing with such a vast area and you need to get it under control, you need traffic under control, you need people in their homes to kind of be, stay put. How do you go about communicating that with folks? Because, some people may want to go outside and see what's going on and, do all of that. How do you make sure that everyone is safe while police are conducting this investigation?
You try. but you don't.
You don't, right?
And that's the problem, is that we're all curious. Yeah. And people are going to go out and they're going to take a look and try to find out what's going on, and officers are shouting at them and trying to get them back and stuff, but everybody's curious.
Yeah.
And again, it comes down to how many officers are available to do that. And that's a huge issue.
Yeah.
Andy, Kevin, I'm sorry, I just want to ask one more thing. Kevin's our producer. I've been here most of my adult life, and I have to say, I have never seen a wave after wave of violence against police as we're seeing now. Every night, we're talking about an officer-involved shooting. What has happened to Phoenix?
Thank you for bringing that up, because I agree with you. Part of the problem is, and I'm not being critical of news media. News media covers those things outside the norm. So when an officer does something stupid, or there's a bad shooting where they make a mistake, that goes viral, that goes nationwide. And our community sits at home and watches this, and it becomes the norm for them, when it's not. It's not the norm. Officers are making literally hundreds of thousands of contacts every day across this nation, and they go find. Every once in a while, somebody who probably had no business being in law enforcement does something like this, and it goes viral. And that doesn't help those officers that are out there working so hard, dedicated, hardworking officers with families that are out there to protect our community. If we want to have a community where it's safe to raise our children and our grandchildren in, we have to support our law enforcement.
Andy, thank you so much for coming in studio. We wish that you didn't have to come under these circumstances, but it looks like today those officers are going to be okay. So
Yeah.
that is
Yes.
that is the
Could have
good
been
news.
so
Yeah,
much
it could have been
worse.
so much worse. Yeah.
Andy, thanks.